Will the candidates please take your seats? We'll begin with a pledge to the flag, if everyone would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brief introduction. My name is Mary Falwell. I'm representing the League of Women Voters. The League promotes informed, active participation by citizens in government. The panelists the candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question. Timers are sitting over here, easy view over you. And you'll get 30 second, 15 seconds and stop. There will be 1 minute available to answer each question. Final round of questions for your closing comments. You'll have 1 and 1/2 minutes. And we will start with Mr. Manzo, and then each round of questions we will rotate, and so the next person will start the next round of questions. So, Mr. Manzo, what are the top 5 items you'd like to achieve in your term, if elected?
Thank you. Good evening, Bel Air Beach. I'm running tonight so that we can accomplish things that have been on the drawing board for many years and have never been done. First and foremost, we need to get responsiveness for our citizens. They're not being heard right now, so responsiveness is number 1. Number 2, we need to get a handle on our capital projects. We need to do strategic planning. We need to do capital planning. We also need fiscal responsibility. Right now, we do not seek all the grant money that we possibly can, and we don't know where every dollar is going. We also have a quality of life issue. Quality of life issue I lump in with safety, and it's several parts. Safety and the actual quality of life when you're talking about traffic on Gulf Boulevard and people abusing our beaches. So that comes into quality of life. And last, we need to get a handle on government transparency.
Next would be Leslie Notero.
Same question?
Same question.
I'm very proud to have served as mayor for the last 3 years on council for 10 years. And Mr. Manzo talks about things that have been on the drawing board for a long time. We run a very tight ship here. We are very fiscally responsible. We have one of the lowest millage rates in the county. We have balanced budgets. We do have a capital projects fund with things timed out as to when it's appropriate to do them. We have a very responsive, we do respond to citizens' comments. The last council meeting, someone stood up and said, "Thank you. I called you and you needed to get I asked for stoplights or traffic lights in my neighborhood and they got put up, street lights, excuse me." So I want to keep the city running as well as it runs now. Thank you.
Okay, those are the 2 candidates for mayor. Now the candidates for city commissioner. First would be Robin Hockey.
Hi, thank you everybody for coming. You know, kind of to echo what they've already said, I think one of my biggest issues to address is communication with the residents. Make sure that everybody's aware what we're doing, make sure that your voice is heard. And when you do stand up at a council meeting and show a concern, make sure that one, it's addressed, put on the next work section, and then also get the feedback to you that we've addressed it. Safety for me is a big thing. I have 2 small children, so I want to make sure traffic is kept at a minimum, obviously. The streets are safer. Going to the next one, infrastructure, I think is important. Make sure that the streets that are flooding are appropriately addressed and proper drainage. As far as other things, 15 seconds, okay, sorry. Pretty much those are my big ones, and just kind of echo what it's already been doing on the city council, just to further our actions and keep it going.
Mr. Dave Gaddis, your 5 most important things you'd like to accomplish.
First and foremost, I would look at the undergrounding project and verify that it's actually running smoothly as it should be, as it's one of the most important issues for Bel Air Beach right now, not only for aesthetics but also for safety. If we were to encounter a major storm, there would be obstacles of downed wires everywhere, preventing us from getting into the city. Next, I would look into drainage. Very important also, because currently with just standard downpours, we don't drain properly. Next thing I would look at is two-way communications between the city and the citizens. Beyond that, I believe I'm out of time.
And sorry, we're going to go out of seating order a little bit because you're out of alphabetical order, but we will deal with that. Mr. Harper.
Thank you. Bel Air Beach is a unique community in that it is one of the only communities that I'm aware of that has no commercial businesses of any kind, which presents a set of unique challenges to the community. So as we look at how the community is working, how it's being developed, it really comes down to being is, do we have a strategic plan? Do we have a vision of where the community wants to go? Do we have a vision of how that money is going to be accrued? Do we have a vision of how that money is going to be prioritized and spent? So number one clearly is the idea of a strategic plan. Community development. So when we talk about Bel Air Beach, we talk about living in Bel Air Beach, but are we really truly a community? Do we really communicate? Do we really interact? Do we really have the idea of how do we interact with our neighbors and take ownership of the community? Disaster planning, and clearly how to prepare for hurricanes and all the different things that take place, including down wires and drainage as an example. Communication amongst ourselves, and then clearly safety and security of the community as a whole.
Rita Swope.
Thank you. I also would like to echo a lot of the comments that have already been made. I'm a true believer in open communication, so that's number one, and getting the community involved so that we become a true neighborhood, number two, and continue to work with council, city manager, mayor to move forward the projects that are already in place, and plus look at what else is needed for our infrastructure and all of our drainage issues and underground wiring. Also, develop different committees to help continue to move this area forward as far as becoming a true neighborhood where we can all work as one. And last but not least, the storm preparation, getting everybody ready so that when we do have an issue, we can all be safe and as well as keep our families safe and our neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, the next question would be our second candidate for mayor. And with the city attorney retiring, will you support an RFP? I believe that's request for proposal for a new city attorney. That would be Ms. Natoro.
Yes, when Mr. Marino does decide to retire, I would support an RFP. We would go through a search process to find one. I believe that's required by our our code and by state law, much as we did when we hired our new city manager. We went through a very elaborate search process.
Okay, Mr. Manzo? All right, the order. The two mayor candidates will just go back and forth, and the other candidates will rotate.
Okay, thank you. My understanding is that the city attorney serves at the pleasure of the council. He's served here for 20 years. I've heard some of the decisions that he's made. I've read some of the law that he's passed. As far as I'm concerned, every single position that is under the city council, once I become mayor and once the new council comes in, will be reapproved by that council, whether he retires or not. There are laws, in my opinion, that are on the books right now that are unconstitutional. They should have never been passed to begin with. And I certainly am going to have several questions for Mr. Marino and any other attorney that decides to bid for these jobs. I believe that the only way you can get a handle on your financial house is to bid every single project. I'm not a fan of emergency bids and one-source bids. This man has been here for 20 years. It's time to bid this out again. It's time to revisit our relationship with him and see if it's benefiting this city.
Same question about the city attorney. This would be Mr. Gaddis.
I have no problem accepting referrals from existing council members, employees, or the standing attorney for a replacement. However, I do believe that anyone would still have to go through the standard process, the RFP process, and be vetted as if we did not know them at all.
Mr. Harper.
Yes, I would support any position coming open for council participation should be vetted out and basically be reviewed from a participation perspective. This is an important position for the overall organization, and it needs to be put into a position that effectively, make sure that we have the right people in the right positions. And I think the best way to do that is putting things out for RFP. Absolutely.
And Rita Swope.
I do believe that we need to follow the policies already established, and that if we do need to change them in any way, then we all look at that together as a community to see how we can move forward and what we do need to ask for in order to fill that position.
Rabanaki.
I agree that if that position's open, that we definitely need to vet appropriate candidates to petition, to go through the process and find the best one that will serve our community the best way.
All right, next question. What specific qualifications do you have for this office, the office for which you're running? What specific qualifications do you have? Mr. Manzo.
Anzai. I bring the 4 qualities that you need to run a city to this job. It's something that no one else has and no one else will have. I started out as a certified public accountant. It's a license that I hold to this day in the state of New Jersey, so I know financials backwards and forwards. I worked for Deloitte & Touche, which is one of the biggest accounting firms in the country. From there, I went into executive management in Sony. I started in finance, and then I developed the retail outlet stores for them, and then their retail stores. I built $5 million stores around the country in places like Las Vegas, Chicago, and New York City. So I know capital projects, I know how to run them, and I know how to build them. On top of that, after that, I became an attorney. I'm licensed now in 5 states. I specialize in contract law, I specialize in constitutional law. When you add all of that together, add into that my management experience. I've had departments that have had over 100 people in them, I've had stores that have had over a dozen people. We have 8 people in our city, so I think I'm well qualified.
Mr. Taro.
Yes, I've served on the city council since 2010. I have experience with the city. I also am an attorney, and I am licensed in Illinois and in Florida, as well as the United States Supreme Court. I have worked with the city. We work as a council. This is not a job. It's not a shall I say, a strong mayor form of government. It's a council manager form of government. The council directs the staff to do the work. The mayor does not do does not manage on his or her own. But as I said, I've served the council for many years. I got our beach renourishment done years ago. I think we've maintained great fiscal responsibility. We have a wonderful staff, and I have to keep working with them and for the city, for its residents.
Okay, the question about your specific qualifications? Mr. Harper.
Thank you. When we look at the qualifications of the role, it really comes down to vision, it comes to detail, it comes down to the opportunity, not only to take that vision, but also can you break that vision into multiple components and actually execute on that vision. I am trained as an engineer, and that's part of what energy does, is they look at the big picture and they break it into smaller pieces to accomplish the overall vision and the goals that are trying to be accomplished. So I look at this from an attention to detail, the ability to have the vision, the ability to manage the vision, and also the ability to move things forward and hold people accountable for what they need to do.
Ms. Aki.
I'm a general surgeon, so I'm used to stressful situations. So I have no problem with leadership. I'm on several leadership committees for the hospitals and the medical exec committees. I also am a pretty level-headed, common sense, fair-headed person, so I'm good with conflict and keeping things on a calm field, so I'd be good on the council when things get a little heated to kind of keep everything on track. I have great compassion for my community. I'm a mother of 2 young children. I want this to be a family-friendly community for people of all ages, and I feel like I would be great to bring that viewpoint to the council.
Dave Gaddis.
For starters, I have an extensive technical background. In fact, I manage our company's engineering department. Also, I have many years in management. So managing projects and overseeing all things technical is something that I specialize in. Also, one thing that I have noticed about attendance at different meetings is I haven't seen everybody every time. One thing that I can say that I will do is dedicate my time to the city. I'm in love with this city and love the people, and am very committed to give my time to this city.
Okay, Ms. Natoro, candidates for mayor. Did I skip somebody?
Yes.
I got it, I'm
That's
sorry.
okay, no.
Ms. Swope.
Not a problem. I too have extensive experience in management, many years. I'm not going to number how many, but I led multiple departments for an international company, and I also have a proven ability to bring together our neighbors in order to make our community much better than it is, and to look forward to the future to continue to make it better. I have extensive background in negotiations and reaching consensus from all parties involved.
The next question is, is your position on taxes? And I guess I got a little out of order here, so Rita would be the first person to answer that question.
Mayors, or mayor and
Oh, yes. Ms. Notaro, what is your position on taxes?
Like most people, I'm not real fond of them. I like to keep them as low as possible. In the time I've been on city council, we have only raised our millage rate once. And other than that, it's stayed the same. It's one of the lowest around here. And I think it contributes to the rise in the property values around here. We have a unique situation here because we are totally residential, so we don't have the business taxes, but we need to be fiscally responsible and keep our taxes as low and reasonable as possible. And I think that's what I will continue to do.
Mr. Manzo.
Thank you. In Bel Air Beach, did you see your tax bill go down last year? It didn't. And you know why it didn't? Because the mayor kept the millage rate the same, but the mayor raised the assessed property taxes, assessed property value of your house. You multiply the two together, you get your local taxes. It's went up every single year for the last 5 years. The whole of this city from you has went from $700,000 in 2013 to over $1 million now. Your taxes are going up every single year with this mayor. So the key to this is fiscal responsibility. That's how you control your taxes. That's why I said the first thing that I'm going to do, one of the first things I'm going to do, is sit down, convene an ad hoc committee, and go through every line item of the budget to try and find any areas of potential savings. Your taxes are going up at Bel Air Beach. Don't let anyone kid you.
Ms. Swope.
I too am not fond of taxes, so just to let you know I am. I think since we don't have any businesses and no taxes cut revenue coming in from that aspect, that we as a neighborhood and as Bel Air Beach need to make sure that we have enough money to sustain our life as it is and improve it constantly, whether we need to go up on our taxes or not. But once again, I'm not a big fan of taxes, so if anybody wants to get my tax bill, let me know.
Ms. Aki.
Well, again, like anybody up here, no one's a fan of taxes, and the goal would always be to keep the taxes as low as possible. If that means to, like Mr. Manzo said, go over the budget and make sure that we're doing everything fiscally responsible in order to maintain that, then I'm all for that. So anything we can do to keep our taxes low, but in the same sense, we need to be fiscally responsible, and if that means at a time or two we have to hopefully slightly raise them in order to get things done for the community and for the betterment of everybody, I think that would be wise, but hopefully the last ditch effort for that.
Mr. Gaddis.
Like everyone else, no, I don't like paying taxes. But if I'm going to have to pay taxes, I want to make sure that I'm getting something for my money. In the last year and a half, I've been paying very close attention to what's going on here, and I see money not really being spent. I'm not sure exactly where it's going, but what I can tell you is that, yes, the taxes are going up, and I just think we can do a better job of using that money appropriately.
Next question.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I don't know how I'm doing that, but thank you for, I keep being reminded that nobody's perfect, so thank you for pointing out when I'm not. Mr. Harper.
Thank you. When we talk about the city and we talk about the candidates, we talk about the platforms we're going through here, we really talk a lot about what the city needs to do, what the city needs to do for capital improvement and expenditure. But ultimately, this comes down to a strategic plan. If we know where the city wants to go, where it needs to go, and the citizens and the residents agree to it, then the strategic plan will be the basis of the budgets and will be the basis of how we generate the revenue for the community. Because we are a commercial-free zone, we've got to figure out how to raise the money, whether it's through taxes or grants or anything dealing with state and local government that we can tap into. But ultimately, we've got to have the strategic plan. We've got to have the vision, and then that will dictate the priorities of how we spend money and how we need to accrue the money to get what we need to have done.
Thank you. Now for the mayoral candidates again. There are a couple of questions based on where people live and the area referred to as Bel Air Island Estates. And some people are concerned about possible favoritism for certain areas of the city. Is that a realistic concern just address that issue. And that would be Mr. Manzo.
I've heard these, I've been going door to door. I've done about 20 blocks of our city. I've spoken with a lot of individuals. I've had a lot of feedback. This comment does come up from time to time. We seem to be talking about a north-south thing. This isn't the Civil War, folks, okay? We're one city, and that's the way I'm going to handle this, as one city. I live south of the Causeway. I live on 7th Street. Everyone has their own issues. We have flooding. We have sewage coming down our street. That's our issue. Belle Island wants to underground their utilities. Everyone in every group has something special. To be the mayor, to be on this council, I think you have to represent all of the people. Citizens are always welcome at my town council meetings. Any of their comments will be received with open arms and acted upon. So in terms of anyone who felt that there's any favoritism or anything, we do need to make sure that we keep a diverse group of people on council and as mayor, but also everyone's welcome to make their comments and input. We listen to everyone when I'm mayor.
Mr. Taro.
I can understand where that question is coming from. It has to do with the undergrounding. We did a survey several years ago conducted by the University of South Florida Institute of Government regarding how the citizens felt about undergrounding. And it was very clear that that area was the one area that really wanted it. So that's why we're focusing on that at this point. But as far as the mayor and the council represents everyone in the city. We don't have districts or precincts, anything like that. It represents the entire city, and that's what I've always done, and that's what I will continue to do.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Aki is going to be first.
Well, I also
No,
believe,
Wait, yeah, okay. With the question about the possible favoritism.
I too believe that the council should represent every house, every street, every area of Bel Air Beach equally. I don't think there should ever be any favoritism. I'm all about open communication, so addressing issues, getting feedback to the citizens. So if I'm on the council, I will make sure that no citizen feels like the one area of Bel Air Beach is favored over another.
Mr. Gaddis.
I absolutely don't believe in favoritism. It doesn't matter whether you're from the north or the south, or you have a large house or a small house. I think everyone should be treated equally and live within the constraints of our city code. On the other hand, if I see something that is not equal in that code and it should be removed or corrected, I'll be the first to stand up for the people that are left out or left behind.
Mr. Harper.
The council represents the city, represents the residents of the city. There is no place for bias in the communication, but there is a place for involvement. So those residents that step up and make themselves known and let the council and the city understand what the needs are, that usually is what helps as far as driving the projects and the priorities in the direction. So whether it's traffic or flooding or safety or whatever the issue is, the important thing here is really involvement in the council, involvement in the city government process. So no, there is no place for bias, and there's every opportunity here to be involved. I would highly encourage, as we move the council forward into the next session and the next year, the idea of committees, the idea of involvement, the idea of being heard is the critical component here.
Thank you. Rita Small.
I too will echo many of the comments already made. I understand it's important to everybody that lives in Bel Air Beach to feel valued and important, and I get that. I also understand that there are many of you that do feel like there's an invisible barrier between the north and the south. I've been, talking to a lot of our neighbors too. So I will continue to work to bring our neighbors together so that we can all build a better community together.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Notaro, how can the city and the council address drainage problems this year before the next major storm? Our street floods even without rain. We can't wait until 2020 when correction is loosely scheduled. And I think someone else alluded to drainage problems.
We are addressing those with the city as well as with the county. We are putting in the problems are occurring at high tide primarily, and we're putting in new valves that keep the water from flowing back in from the high tide. So we are addressing it. We have money set aside for the various drainage projects, and we are addressing them in sequence. We're finishing it. A couple of them are just about done. We're starting on a couple new ones.
Mr. Mansell.
Thank you. The answer to the question is they can't address this year. It's not going to happen, folks. There's no strategic plan. There's no capital plan. They've got a capital budget, and that is not a plan. They know that these streets flood. These streets have been flooding for 10 years. All the time Ms. Notaro was on council, they were flooding. And now they're looking to do something about it. We've got worse than flooding. I live on 7th Street. We've got sewage flowing down our street, and we call ourselves a premier community. Premier communities don't have sewage flowing down their street. Third world countries have that. We know it's a problem. I, after becoming a candidate for mayor, spoke with the town manager, who told me it's always been like that. So in other words, suck it up, soldier, it's going to be happening like that. That's unacceptable for me, it's unacceptable for the residents of 7th Street. All this flooding is unacceptable. We need to get a strategic plan, we need to address these issues. The truth of the matter is, it's not going to happen this year. It's going to happen over time once we get a handle on our capital projects.
Dave Geddes, the drainage problems.
Definitely drainage is an issue, no doubt about that. One of the first things that I'd like to do is just take a good look at all of the flood prone locations and kind of get my hands around what the real problems are. Beyond just the normal drain pipes and the addition of possible valves, backflow valves, I would also like to look into improving the streets guttering because that seems to be a big issue also.
Rita Swope.
Now, there definitely is many streets in Bel Air Beach that have flooding issues. I too live on one. I do know that they have a current plan in place that the city council, city manager, and mayor have put together, and they are working to get those moving forward. Now, I know they've been addressing many of them because 1st and 2nd Street have been fixed. From what I can tell, they look very nice. So I'm looking forward to when they continue to move forward and get the rest of the streets fixed. I do understand it's going to take time. I do understand it's going to take money in the budget. But that's why I think we all need to work together to figure out our priorities and see which ones we can move the quickest in order to help all the people that live here.
Robin Hockey.
Very similar to what the other candidates said. In medicine we talk about triage, go for the ones that are the worst first, the ones that are the most need of attention first. So obviously a sewage one would be probably one of the first ones on my list to address. Make sure we're doing it not only cost effective, but also long term, as in not just a quick Band-Aid fix, but to fix it for the long term, as in several decades, not just a year or two. Make sure that when we do get these plans in place, that we don't take the first bid, the first offer, we go with multiple competing companies, make sure that we get the best price so that we can use our money responsibly the right way and the right time and the first time.
Thank you. Next question, Mr.
Excuse me.
I apologize.
So much for sitting in the center, right?
All right, you should have, after, I'm sorry, the seating arrangement, but after Mr. Geddes, then you should always be next after him.
Right, but when you call her up, I'm not going to interrupt.
So, okay.
So from a drainage perspective, it comes down to strategic planning, it comes down to capital budget. I think the idea that there is a master drain plan in place for the city, but it's a multi-million-dollar plan to put in drains, to put in check valves, to put in sewage, to put in curbing, to repave. There's a lot going on here. So I think that the challenge here is not only understanding, what the drainage problem is and making sure that we're able to budget to and build to that drainage plan from a budgeting perspective, but we're also able to prioritize. So where are the biggest problems and make sure that, to Robin's point, we are triaging accordingly and making sure that we're able to have a short-term plan, but at the same time we're actually building out a longer-term vision.
Thank you. Now, back to the mayoral candidates. The city of Dunedin, and this would be for Mr. Manso first. The cities of Dunedin, St. Pete, and Largo have passed resolutions to pursue 100% renewable energy, solar, wind, that sort of thing. Do you think this is a realistic goal for our city?
I'm not so sure that it's even possible in our city, given our limitations on our land and some of our other limitations of our infrastructure. We're looking right now into doing a lighting project, and I'm not on council, but council's right now looking at this. We're studying whether solar makes sense or whether electric makes sense. I think that type of thing you can pursue, but in terms of renewable energy with different types of energy sources, windmills, things like this, it's not going to happen in Bel Air Beach. We don't have the type of land for that. We don't have the type of infrastructure. We have problems right now with our regular electric. We have wires that fall from the sky and almost burn houses down. I'd like to see us work on that right now before we start going onto other areas that are not necessarily even proven. This is stuff that needs immediate attention. People could get killed by that. It happened 2 blocks away from me. My house lit up like a Christmas tree when it happened. So it's something that we need to pay attention to and not worry, I think, at this point about solar, and renewable energy at this point for our town.
Okay, Ms. Notaro?
Yes, I actually agree with much of what he said. Those are different types of cities than is Bel Air Beach. We don't have the facilities to put up windmills. I know we have some people in town who have gone to solar energy on their homes, and I think that's great. I would encourage anybody to do it, and I know there are tax breaks if you do that, so I would encourage that, but I don't think doing it as a citywide project, it's going to happen anytime soon, if at all, in Bel Air Beach.
Thank you. Mr. Harper.
Renewable energy is a goal that all of us should strive for, whether it's for the government or for the personal needs. The idea that we are less dependent on fossil fuels is great for the environment, it's great for global warming, but it has to be at this stage a personal decision on a personal home. We don't have infrastructure and we have far bigger fish to fry in the current projects. So I would say, I think it would be great for the city to pass a memorandum or some type of statement that effectively says that the city supports 100% renewable energy as a goal, but as far as making it happen, it's not a short-term or a long-term vision.
Rita Swope.
I too feel that we would need to evaluate it and we would need to look at the feasibility of it and also get input from everyone. I think it's a personal decision right now as well, that if you want to go solar into your home, then you should have that ability to do that. As far as the entire city, I think we would need to really get the neighbors involved in looking at anything other than just a personal.
Romanaki.
I agree with what everyone said so far. I mean, long-term, it sounds amazing. It sounds like a great idea, but for the right now, I don't think it's a good idea to do it for as far as the city, home to home. I know I have a neighbor that has solar, and it's worked out well for them, and it's been great. And I applaud them for going that extra step. But as far as, like you said, having windmills and solar panels all over the place, I don't think that's going to be a way to spend our money responsibly when there's other bigger issues going on.
Mr. Gaddis?
Going solar is a personal choice. As far as a mass rollout citywide, we don't have the space. It's not that efficient, and it just doesn't make sense for a beach community.
Okay, back to the mayors. This one may be, excuse me, tough questions because it's going into a larger worldwide area. And that is the issue of sea level rise. Our civilization is facing that. And you are very, I would think, being a beach community, you would be quite vulnerable to that. What are your thoughts about that? Is there anything, is there anything within your scope of responsibility or anything that you can encourage people to do? Or what, do you have any answers? Even just defining the problem is terrible.
You know, I think other than being, you know, should I say green to prevent to help stop global warming and things like that, we can deal with it to a certain extent in our building codes to raise things up above the level that might be affected by sea level rise, but I don't think there's a whole lot that Bel Air Beach can do about it.
I think I have to agree with Leslie Natera. This is twice in one night here, we're agreeing. But, you know, folks, when I hear about this type of stuff, I don't dismiss it outright, but I am an attorney. And when you bring sometimes an expert into court, one of the questions are, is this person giving you real science or is this person giving you junk science? I think this is unproven at this point in time, whether we really have sea level rise and what's causing it and what may be able to be done to stop it. I remember coming down to Bel Air Beach when I was a resident of New Jersey. I remember the water crashing into the seawalls on all the houses along Bel Air Shore. And I go out there today and I see about 20 to 50 feet of of sand that wasn't there before. So I don't know, if the sea's rising, that should be coming over their seawalls, and that's not the situation right now. That's anecdotal evidence. I don't know our global situation where it actually falls. I do have to agree with Leslie Nataro. I don't know that there's anything as mayor or council we could really do about this.
Rita spoke.
Actually, I'm going to agree with both of them because there's really not a whole lot that we can do at the present time except continue to look at our building codes to see that we're doing everything possible. But I don't see anything that we could do at the moment. We all chose to live here, so I don't know what else to tell you guys.
Reverend Albee.
I agree. I mean, our U.S. Congress can't even come to grips with this or find a solution or agree on it, so I don't think we're going to be able to do anything major in Bel Air Beach other than just responsible, you know, going green type practices. So I agree with that.
Mr. Gaddis.
I think the question is larger than I am to decide whether the earth is dying or not. On the other hand, I think it's a personal and a community decision that we should all live responsibly and live cleanly. That means don't pollute our waters, drive fuel-efficient cars, and don't waste electricity. Beyond that, it's pretty much we're at the mercy of what's going to happen.
Mr. Herbert.
It is a global situation. How the science reads is up for interpretation. But really it comes down to awareness. Are you aware of what's happening? This also goes back into the earlier conversation about the flood plan. You know, what is the drainage plan? What is the flood plan already building? And then are we taking that into account? So the best thing we can do right now is make sure we plan for the future, make sure we prepare for the future, and make sure we drive awareness of the situation within the community to best counteract those elements that we can.
Okay, Mr. Manzo. Someone asked the question of how do you feel about your community? How do you feel about Bellar Beach?
Pretty broad question. I like Bellar Beach. I could have probably lived any place in the country. I chose to move down here. I wanted to move down here for a long time. I bought property here in 2005, built my house in 2014. So I like Bellar Beach, but I think Bellar Beach can do better than it's doing right now. And we need to focus on the areas of responsiveness, communications with the residents. We need to focus on strategic planning, infrastructure repair. We throw around this term, we're a premier city. We're not. We want to be a premier city, and we have to work to get there. And until we fix the problems that we have, until we recognize that we have problems, and actually make a plan to solve them, then everyone's not going to be happy. I know my residents aren't happy when there's flooding coming down their street, and sewage, and water and wires falling from the sky, and delays on projects. That's unacceptable. So it could be a great community, and I love the community. I just want us to be as efficient as possible in running it.
Term.
Do I have to agree with him again?
Oh, no. That's great.
I love Bellar Beach. It's a unique city. My husband and I bought our place down here in '95 and moved down here full-time in 2002. So I've come to know a lot of the people down here, seen changes within the city. It's unique and it's special, and I think we all appreciate that, and I would like to keep it that way. You know, people talk, there's been a lot of talk about you need to fix all these problems now. We can do that. Let's just triple our millage rate. The consensus has been to take these things in order, the projects, and they are all scheduled, and we will deal with them in time, in the appropriate time. Next.
Robin Aki.
I've lived here since 2011. I was born and raised in Tampa and love Florida. And when we discovered Bellar Beach, my husband and I just fell in love with this place. And we just wanted to come here. And I moved in when I was like 6 months pregnant, so I knew we were going to have a family here. And it was a very safe feeling. It was welcoming, and I want to do everything I can when I'm on council to continue that community feel and that welcoming feel to all people of all ages, children, all the way to retirees. And I've been very happy here, and I love it. Don't plan to ever leave.
Mr. Geddes.
I've lived in communities where I barely knew my next door neighbors. Whenever I moved to Bellar Beach, that was not the case. Just within a few weeks, people were walking up, shaking my hand, getting to know me. I felt the love, and I have continued to feel that love the entire time I've lived here. There's not a week that goes by that I don't meet somebody new. There are very few strangers in this town, and I think it's our place to give back to such a wonderful community. Definitely, there's some things that need to be repaired, but overall, I think it's a great town, and I would not want to live anywhere else.
Mr. Harper.
I think
I'm getting better.
Yeah, you're great. I think the key word here is community. We are a great city. I think we do well. We're fiscally responsible. We're running, above board. But the idea of community is: are we working together as neighbors? Are we communicating? Are we participating? Are we involved? I chose to live in Bellar Beach. I chose to live here for several reasons, but the first was to eliminate the snowblower, and the second was to be able to walk to people's sunsets. But the idea of living in Bellar Beach is a privilege, and I think it's something that we're all involved in, and I think it's a matter of being involved and being for that community. The city needs to be responsive to its citizens, but the citizens also need to be involved.
And Ms. Swope.
Well, I think a lot of you in the room already know the answer to that question for me, but I'll let you know anyway. I absolutely love Bel Air Beach. My husband and I have met some of the most amazing people that we've ever known in our life. And not only have we met them, but they have become good friends and lifelong friends. We enjoy getting together with them. We enjoy spending holidays, special occasions, etc. So we will continue to live here as well, and we will continue to try to get to know more people and build this community up to make it even better.
Thank you. The time flies when you're having fun, I guess. We're down to the wire of when we're going to have the closing statements. But before we have the closing statements, I just have a few comments. I'd like to thank our timers tonight. And I'd like to recognize the president of the League of Women Voters of North Pinellas County, Karen Carinja. And our helpers at the back, the Burts, who helped distribute the question cards. Okay, the election is on March 12th, it's a Tuesday. The registration deadline, I have a feeling that most people who are interested enough to be here tonight are already registered, but just in case, or if your neighbor needs to know. Registration deadline is Monday, February 11th. If you want to request a ballot be mailed to you, you need to make that request by March 6th. And the polls are open on election day from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. Our local supervisor of elections has a very user-friendly website. It's www.votepinellas.com. And I'd like to thank the panel, and I would like to thank the audience. You've been a wonderful audience, and I think you need a round of applause. So the final minute and a half opportunity for your closing remarks. We'll do this in reverse order. So we will start with Rita Swope.
Well, my name is Rita Swope, and I'm asking for your vote. As an elected member of the Bel Air Beach City Council, I bring over 30 years of management experience with multi-million-dollar companies. Being originally licensed in real estate in 2005, I have an extensive background in negotiating and reaching consensus with all parties involved. I have a proven ability to bring together our neighbors in order to make a better community. One of my priorities when elected is to try to bring that same sense of community to all of our neighbors in Bel Air Beach. What I have learned is that many of you felt the same as I did, estranged from your own neighborhood and estranged from your city government. To me, that is unacceptable. Infrastructure, beautification, code ordinances, protecting our home values, protecting the safety of our neighbors are all important responsibilities of the City Council. Standing here tonight, asking for your vote, I am both humbled and energized. Being your voice for our neighborhood would not only be an honor for me, but my obligation to you. I will be diligent in my duties and never forget we the people in order to protect our quality of life. Again, I'm Rita Swope, and I'm asking for your vote, and thank you for coming this evening.
Mr. Harper.
My name is Todd Harper. I'm a resident of Bel Air Beach. I've been here since 2015. I've had an opportunity to not only live in the community and work with the community, I've been able to volunteer on different committees within the community. I currently sit in the interim position on council. It has been a learning experience. It is a learning curve, and there's a lot going on. I give the current council a lot of credit for the idea that they're moving forward with the capital projects, with the floods, with the drainage, The biggest challenge we always have as a community is the idea of capital improvement and money to do all the things that we need to do. So I continue to promote the idea of a strategic plan, a strategic vision. We want to be a premier Gulf Coast community, but we've got to be able to do the things that a Gulf Coast community needs to be able to do. We need to be able to communicate with the residents. We need a two-way level of communication. We need to be able to have that strategic plan. We need to be prepared for emergencies. We need to have the capital funds ready to go for the different projects. So as we look at what Bel Air Beach is and can be, the idea of where we are going to be from a community standpoint is really up to us. We are here from a council perspective as a representative to the community and to the residents. We want to be the best that we possibly can be, but we need involvement and we need the idea that the community supports what the priorities of the community are. So make it two-way communication, make it involved. My name is Todd Harper and I would ask for your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Gaddis.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Gaddis. Thank you so much for coming out. Whenever I first moved to Bel Air Beach, I was impressed not only with the city, but the openness of the people around. There were a couple of things that I thought needed to be changed, and so I became involved with our city government. First thing I noticed was our city council was very generous for tolerating me and a lot of my input during that time. I've spent many hours here at City Hall with the council members and also the various committees, learning about the city and trying to decide what can be done. Definitely we have some issues with undergrounding that I really think need to be completed so that we can roll this out to the rest of the city, and also drainage, very important. Beyond that, I want to bridge the gap between the citizens and the city officials. Certainly we can do better, and I believe we should be able to make usage of the tools we already have in place, only use them better. Again, my name is Dave Gaddis. I would greatly appreciate your vote on election day. Thank you very much.
Robin Aki.
Hi, I'm Robin Aki. As you may have noticed, I have a slightly different background than pretty much everybody up here. I come from the medical side, but being a physician has made me be the type of person to want to fix, want to help and make things better. And that's what I want to bring to the council. I'm a mother of 2 young children. I'm very invested in families and the families in this community. Open communication. I feel that one of the problems we've had on council is maybe the communication in the past with the residents and addressing their concerns in a timely manner, and where the residents felt that their concerns were actually addressed, not just blown off. So I want to make sure to fix that. You know, as they said, you know, have a strategic plan, have fiscal responsibility, have a diverse representation on the council so we can represent everybody in this community, whether it's the youngest child to the oldest citizen. And that's what I feel like I can bring to this compassion, integrity, and dedication to this council. Again, I'm Robin Aki. I would appreciate your vote.
Mayoral candidates. Ms. Notaro.
Hi, my name is Leslie Notaro, and I'm currently the mayor. I've been on the city council since 2010. A little interesting in how I got on the council. Joe was talking about seeing the beach, the Gulf come up against the walls in Bel Air Shore. I live on the beach, and when I first moved down here, I caught a small hammerhead shark standing on my seawall. That tells you how much beach we had. So I got involved on beach renourishment, worked with the county, with the state, with the city people, and we got beach renourishment. And that's why there's now a beach out there, which didn't used to be there before. Worked for all the citizens. I find it interesting that he said something that it's my fault that our property taxes went up because your property values went up. If I'm responsible for the property values going up, thank you. I take full credit for it. But I think we run a very, because of the nature of Bel Air Beach, we run a very tight ship here. We are fully funded, our reserves are fully funded, our projects, our capital projects are funded as appropriate time-wise. So I'd like to continue doing that, and I ask you for your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Mansell?
Thank you, citizens of Bel Air Beach, for coming out and listening to everyone tonight. It shows your interest in this government. And I think all the candidates put their interest in the government. Why am I doing this? Because I'm interested in what you have to say. Because for too long, no one's been listening to you. You've come to council meetings, you've been beaten down, no one's listening to you. They're telling you to suck it up because this is the way it's always been. Well, that ends March 12th. We're going to repair our infrastructure. We're going to get fiscally responsible. As for tax increases, as the mayor's saying, you know, there's another option. You can let the property values go high and you can lower the millage rate. So what you do is you be fiscally responsible. You look at every dollar that you spend and you spend it the way you spend your own money, conservatively. That's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring my CPA experience, and I'm going to bring my legal experience, I'm going to bring my construction experience to you, and I'm going to use all of that to make sure this stuff runs properly. I went around the city and I'm interrupting people painting their walls. I see a person out there, I interrupted her right in the middle of her paint job. I'm going to interrupt you while you're cleaning your car. I'm going to interrupt you constantly because I want to know what you have to say. I'm hearing problem after problem after problem that's not being addressed. Those days are over come March 12th. My name is Joseph Manzo. If you forgot any of those locations on how you can register to vote, go to votemanzo.com. We've got all of that there. Every week from here to the end of the election, I'm going to be sending you an email highlighting another area where we can improve. I'm not knocking Mayor Notaro, I'm just saying we can do better. It's time for a new leader and a new vision. I'm that person. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone.